One of the first steps in creating that Sheridan style finish is to put a coat of neatsfoot oil on your leather, and it's a light coat. We don't want to saturate it, so we'll use just a piece of sheep's wool here to apply that with, and I'm just using regular 100% neatsfoot oil. We'll put a little bit of it on this piece of sheepskin. And then we'll go to the leather with it, and you can see we're just going to real quickly get it all over everywhere. And you can see that it's really absorbing into this dry leather, but it will lighten up some. We will put this aside and let this soak in overnight, and then we'll come back tomorrow and we will go to the next step of this Sheridan style finish. Well, as you can see, our piece of leather has lightened up quite a bit from the neatsfoot oil that we put on it. We've let it sit overnight. We're now ready to go on to the next step in what is the Sheridan style resist finish, and this is the resist part. We're going to use a product called Super Sheen. It's just a clear acrylic finish for leather. We're going to put a coat of that on the piece of leather, and we'll use a scrap of sheep's wool here to do that with. And we'll just take and put a bit of it on the wool, and then we'll apply it with circular motions with the sheep's wool, making sure that we get it worked down into every cut, every impression, so we get good consistent coverage with it. It's usually best with any kind of a finish not to try to put one super heavy coat on so that you get it all done with one pass, but rather a couple of light coats produces a much better result. So we're going to let this dry, and then we will put a second coat on it before we come back with the antique finish that we'll finish it with. Our piece of leather has dried overnight. We put a second coat of the Super Sheen finish on, and it's good and dry now. So it's time to proceed to the next step, which is putting the antique finish over the top of this. This will help us bring out a lot of the details that we've just carved into it. We're going to use a product called Gel Antique in a medium brown color, and it's real simple to use. We'll take a scrap of sheep's wool, and we'll just squeeze a bunch of this out onto the wool, and then we apply that liberally to the piece of leather, to the carving. And when I say liberally, don't be cheap with this. Make sure that you put enough on there so that it gets worked down into every cut and every impression that you have. You want good coverage. And then we'll take a paper towel, and we'll very quickly we'll wipe off the excess here. And you can see that what happens is the antique settles down into every cut, every impression. It even picks up the grain of the leather out here where we did no carving. But it does a great job of highlighting all of the detail that we just put into this piece of leather. You can see that it gives it a great color, overall tone, and it really gives us even more depth into this carving. If you want to remove just a little bit more of that, you can take a damp sponge and wring just all the water out of it that you can, and very lightly go over the top of it, and you can see here how it's picking up a little bit more. I don't want to really scrub this. I don't want to take all of the color out of the impressions, but this helps to even out that little bit that's still on the surface. And we'll take another paper towel here and kind of dry that off. You see that it really brings out even more contrast in this piece of leather. But that's the basics of the Sheridan style finishing that is used. It produces a lot of depth in your carving. It produces a really rich tone, a really rich color, and I think you'll find it very easy to do. It produces very successful results virtually every time. Well, here's our finished project, and I hope you can see that doing Sheridan style carving can be done with the basic leather working tools. It doesn't require really a special set of stamps to be able to do this. Yeah, don't feel that you're limited by the tools you have. Be willing to give it a try. I think you'll find you can do a lot with just the basic tools that you have.